You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least three households. The Gridiron Australia started well. The Gridiron Australia headquarters up in Winnipeg in a studio, and I reckon after today, probably the ABC headquarters, which will be very, very huge for us, for the small little band that we are. Joining me as always, just for a brief little check-in, is our ever-reliable TC24. How are you handling, mate? How's life at the moment for you?
Good, mate. I'm very busy, as you know, but I just wanted to pop in at the start. Obviously, say good day to Charlie and say good day to the fam, but I do have to run. I won't be sticking around for this interview. I've got some dad duties to attend to, but just want to check in, say good day to everyone, and look forward to listening back to this interview. But yeah, enjoy, lads.
And how is life for you at the moment, mate? All good?
Busy, very busy, but good. Yeah. Very good. Yeah,
that's good. I'm glad everything's going all right.
So yeah, thanks, mate.
We've also got our junior boy turned senior boy at Danny Webb AGSAU. How are you, mate?
Good as always, man. Just happy to be here.
Yes, and definitely not as busy as Timmy Cardi, but that's a good thing, really. None of us want to be as busy as him. But we do have a very special guest joining us. He's one of Australia's funnier humans that we have produced. He's the week's. You throw me off by giving me a reaction. No one ever gives me.
You threw me off by paying me a compliment. So
there's about 4 in here that I've got to read off. So give me a break.
All right,
He's the host of the Weekly on ABC. He's a team captain that I found out on Would I Lie For You on Channel 10. He's an Aussie Bill Mafia man, Mr. Charlie Pickering. How are you, mate?
Very well, very well. Actually, you're right. I've got to hang on.
Yeah,
there we go.
Oh, that was well played.
Nice. Well played. Little reveal there. But great to be on, guys. Thanks for having me.
I want to know, going through your socials, do you have the shoes and socks combo at the moment?
Do you know what? Oh, I've got some socks.
I
haven't got the right shoes today because I had a meeting with one of the bosses at the ABC, so I couldn't quite go full Bill's Mafia for the meeting. You can't jump through a table at a business meeting. I think that's a good rule.
Suplexing the boss would have been a very elite move.
You'd make a good impression. You'd make an impression. That's for sure.
Sheer commitment. He's committed to the wrong stuff, but he's committed. Yeah.
Fair enough. How is life for you, mate? You're an extremely busy man. As I said, you've got at least 3 jobs on the go at the moment, but you're here, there, and everywhere, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously staying across the NFL preseason is the full-time job, and everything else is just in support of that goal. But no, things are great. Like we just wrapped up a season of the Weekly a few weeks ago and managed to take a holiday, go to a sunny place for a little while, and then and now just back at work, but really just watching training camp and everything from here, monitoring injuries. That's really because it's important for the Bills organisation that I'm across every injury that happens.
Exactly right, 100%, and that's exactly why we're here, because we need to get our views out to everyone, and they need to know exactly what we're thinking. But the Bills, I'm pretty sure it's either day 1 or day 2 of their training camp. While everyone's back, we're going to get onto the Bills later. But I want to Josh Allen wearing the red helmet with the red visor. If that's not the coolest look and the best look going around the NFL, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and it's funny. Everyone loves it. It does so well on the socials. I don't know why they don't just reimagine the Bills uniform and just completely commit to it. It's terrifying stuff. It's great.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. But we'll get into it. The boys always give me a bit of shit about this first question. I always love just to see and get in your mind a little bit and to see how your brain ticks. I want to know 3 people that you would have at a dinner party.
Yeah, this is tough. I was worried that might be NFL specific, but
no, God no, anything.
David Letterman is just a hero of mine, but also I kind of would just like to have a conversation with him. I think he's pretty amazing. Michelle Obama, and that's largely because I've got a crush on her, and I just want to get Barack out of the way so I can get some one-on-one time. And I'm just trying to think who else. Oh, Bruce Springsteen. So, I think that would be a pretty good. Oh, no, hang on. I also want Jay-Z. Can I have 4? I don't know.
You're running the question, so you can do what you want.
There you go. I've skewed very American pop culture there. That's interesting.
You have. Yeah. Is that pop culture?
So Michelle Obama.
Yeah. Does that count as pop culture?
Podcast, hasn't she? That's pretty pop. I don't know. Yeah.
I just love how you went for Michelle Obama purely because of the crush, not because she's an amazing human being doing fantastic things for the world.
Comes from. I love her as a person above everything else. But Barack's he takes up too much of the oxygen.
What do you reckon? A former president, what kind of security is he running for a year?
He rolls deep. Also, not a great racial history, America. So I reckon he rolls extra deep on security. I would say.
You noticed that?
Do you remember? Like, I don't know when I was a kid, everyone watched Eddie Murphy's Delirious stand-up special.
Yeah.
And he does a thing about Jesse Jackson running for president, and he goes like the first black president giving a speech, and he's just running around on stage to not get assassinated. And it's just ever since I've just remembered that since I was a kid, and just been like, that's some high risk. It's a high risk job as it is, but that's just an added little ingredient there in the States. This has already gotten controversial, but if three white guys can't agree on that, then what can we agree on?
I love how truth it is though. Like, it's just makes you think. All right, let's get back to the NFL.
Thankfully, Australia just has no racism at all, and we're totally fine. Totally fine. At all.
I'm pretty sure if you open up the Herald Sun, you'll find the first 3 pages will be racist. Anyway. Have you always been a fan of the NFL? Like, how did you get involved? How did you get started with it?
Like, I guess my first memory was when I was a kid, like 8, 9, 10, watching the Super Bowl on TV. I think it was like Don Lane would introduce it back then, and he kind of brought NFL to Australia in a like handed it to us culturally. We had no idea of it, but and then since then I've always been into all sport. So if it was on, I'd watch it. But I married an American, and she grew up, sort of early life, she grew up in New York. She's got family there. So we would spend sort of half the year in New York for a little while. So, and it just culturally was like on a Saturday, everyone goes and watches college football. And on a Sunday, everyone watches NFL. And, I'm a very committed Essendon fan. But I realised I was missing out. Like, I was genuinely missing out on something. And so I just started watching and started going. And I had a mate of mine who I used to work with at Triple J, Scott Dooley, moved to New York. So we'd just go to the pub and watch NFL. And it was funny. He said the words that helped me get it. Like, I loved the sport. And once I got my head around the rules, but he said to me, because he'd been a fan a bit longer than me, and he said, imagine a chess game between 2 grandmasters and they've got $1 billion worth of pieces on the board. And he said, at the moment he said that to me, it all clicked in my head and I started to appreciate just the sheer sophistication of it as a sport, how complicated it is to create action out of theory is just amazing to watch it happen.
And that is probably the best way of describing it. It's the way I describe it to some of my mates who aren't into it, because I was a big basketball fan, always growing up as a kid, then got into the NFL. I was like, it's literally like watching chess, but with human pieces. Because it's a strategy game as much as it is sport.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things, the more you learn, you realise the less you know. And you'll get your head around one thing and then you go, oh, well, now I have to learn what a 2-high shell is. I need to figure out that so I understand, just even those things of like what, when the commentators say like taking what the defense gives him, right? Yeah. With a quarterback, and you're just going, well, what does that even mean? And you have to get your head around that. The fact that they stand there and look and change their plan. And I still need someone, like if I ever meet Josh Allen, I just want to say, tell me how the fuck you call a play. Like how it just seems like how many bits and pieces, how does it work? And then how do you change it? Where the rubber meets the road, I'm still getting my head around how you'd actually do it.
Have you managed to catch much of Quarterback yet, the Netflix show?
I have not watched Quarterback yet. But I'm sort of like saving it for the lull between training camp and the practice match. You know, like there's a
Yeah.
2-week period there where there's not enough real content and just made up stuff. I think I'm gonna hit it there pretty hard.
Yeah, which would be a perfect time, and you like it. It's an incredible show because you really do get to see like inside the minds of the quarterback, and
Yeah.
it'd be good
And
to
I think
see.
they've just announced. I think next season is going to be like Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, and I can't remember who the third is, but they're going around again. I think.
Yeah. I didn't know they announced the people, but I knew they were going around again.
Yeah, or maybe I've read a tweet, taken it as a press release, and there you go.
Yeah, if it was my tweet, it would have been Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. But that's just me as a diehard Philly fan.
I think Jalen Hurts is the third. So
look at him, he's going to melt.
yeah, but you know what I think, and we'll probably get to this when we talk Bills later. I think Rodgers is going to be one of the interesting stories of this season. And I'm not
episodes, I reckon.
I'm not sold on the fact that he's necessarily the savior for the Jets that they want him to be. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It could be a pretty insightful quarterback series watching his season, I reckon.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's already a pretty interesting kind of dude. Just to at the camera and see and follow him around his life, it'd be. I'd still watch it. It'd be incredible.
Listening to Taylor Swift all day. That's how he gets ready to play.
Rocking out to Taylor Swift, and then goes to basketball, and then goes to the hockey, and then go.
Well, you get a sense he's pretty happy to be in New York as opposed to Green Bay. There's a bit more going on.
What do you mean? There's heaps of cheese houses in Green Bay. Everyone loves it. What's wrong with that?
So you said you spent a fair bit of time in New York, and you're not supporting the Jets, you're not supporting the Giants. How did we get to the Bills?
Well, number one, I support the one team that plays in New York, guys. You know that.
Yes.
I'm not here to support two New Jersey teams. But well, it's interesting. Like, I started to get really into it, and so with my oldest son, from the time he was about 3, he started to get really into watching sport, and so I was like, let's watch this. And we started to get into NFL. And we had a rule. We didn't have a team yet. And it was like going to be a thing that we chose together. And what we decided, we had a system, which was we'll pick a team pretty much at random, support them. And if they win the Super Bowl that year, they'll be our team. And if not, we go on to another team the next year, right? It was like, it was a complete crapshoot and a dumb idea, right? It was a dumb idea. So anyway, first season, he picked the Baltimore Ravens. So we followed the Ravens. They were all right. Like, it wasn't a bad year. And then the next season, I chose the Bills. And I then called it pretty quickly. I just said, nah, this is our team. Everything about them is us. I watched the Fall Falls of Buffalo, like the 30 for 30 documentary. And I was like, yeah, I want a team with a cursed history. You don't back a team that's won more Super Bowls. Like, you know, it's like coming on board with the Patriots when they've won 5 Super Bowls. It's like you can't do that.
No.
And my son was very much like Mahomes had just really started to hit his straps, and he was like, "Oh, let's support the Chiefs." And I was like, "No, we need to earn this." And you know, it turns out Bills drafted a great quarterback, and that's and so now we're on a great ride with them. But it's also been a pretty up and down path already. But there's just, I like the team, I like the coach, I like the history, and there was also one of my favorite political journalists a long, long time ago, Tim Russett, who hosted Meet the Press, and he was a really dedicated Bills fan, and he would, through football season, he would end his show with "Go Bills," and so I was just always aware of them as this tragic sporting story, and I'll take the tragedy over success any day.
Is that you said you supported Essendon over here and picking the Bills? Is it success that you were missing? Because you haven't really jumped on a team that's had any success.
Well, I was spoiled. Like, one of the first football games I ever went to was the 84 grand final, when we came back and beat Hawthorn in the last quarter. And then we won in 85. And then I had another 3 or 4 over the next 10 years. So to me, it was like success is always going to come easy. And then it's been a pretty bad 15 years.
What, after 6,700 days or some shit?
I'm actually, I said 15 years. That's nonsense. I mean, it was like, it's been 23 years.
2000.
And it's funny, 2000, I went to every single game, home and interstate, except for one, and it was the one match we lost against the Bulldogs. So I was kind of trapped. Like, I have to go to every game I can now. Otherwise, the fate of the team rests on me. But the superstition stays there. But it's funny. Like, I think the Bills, whilst they got a tragic past, I think they're at a point now. I think as long as you've got one of those quarterbacks, you're going to be competitive and you're actually going to enjoy the ride. I think being stuck with a quarterback that hasn't got it is that's a grim situation for a football team.
And have you been lucky enough to actually get to an NFL game? Like, we've just spoken about all the AFL games you had that you were blessed to go to.
I have not been to an NFL game, but I am going to the home opener against the Raiders this year. So a family holiday, or sort of trip to see some family, just happened to coincide with the start of the season. I booked the flights to Buffalo and I booked the hotel, and I take the 9-year-old, and we're just going to do the full experience. We're going to go to the Mafia house. I'm going to jump through a table.
Yes.
Going to do the whole lot. Like, just absolutely do the whole lot. It's funny, like, explaining to my son that, so we'll go there, and then we'll be around a bunch of Bill supporters. I'll jump through a table, and he's going, like, it's a side of me he hasn't really seen yet. That kind of, like, crazy fan. I've been very responsible up until now, but super excited. Like, just can't stop thinking about it and just can't wait.
You're going to have to wear a GoPro the whole time, live stream it to us so we can watch it and live through you. And then maybe jump on and let us know how it all went as well.
Absolutely. And I will be documenting as much of it as I possibly can. Like, it's, it will be very cool, but happy to chat after the game.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be in New York for Monday Night Football, the first week against the Jets. But it's funny, I'm so nervous about that first game. For some reason, I think it's almost better to see it on TV, so you're almost more analytical. Like, you're checking too many things in that first game of the year to just. I don't know if I could enjoy it at the ground.
It's hard to bet on it too. I find the first one, you're just not quite sure what's going on if you are a betting man, but it's just hard to pick, especially in that game. Like, is the defense going to come out and be elite and they'll stop? Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be all over him, or is he going to come out and absolutely burn you? Like, it's just so up in the air.
There's great uncertainty. It's funny. I felt super confident last year against the Rams in that season opener, but part of that was the fact that we were favourites, we were rolling, and the last game I'd seen them play was the 13 seconds, divisional match, and just sort of feeling, to be honest, and I think the Bills believed their own hype a little bit too much last year going into the season. I don't think they changed enough. I don't think they fixed enough problems with their roster because they'd been so good in that last game of the year. Whereas this year, and we can get into it, last season was a pretty wild ride for a Bills fan. But that last match was so bad, and having your ass handed to you by a really good team now, I do think they were actually just exhausted before they walked onto the field, like with everything they'd been through. And I just don't think that was the side. And also missing like Von Miller and our O-line was just a mess by that point. But I think you look at what they've done in the off-season this year, and they've obviously realised they had some problems that they were ignoring that really caused them trouble in the stretch last year. And I think they've done a pretty good job of, rebuilding. And I think at least they are taking nothing for granted this year.
Just on that, with this year, how do you feel about the Madden curse and, Josh Allen being on the cover? Is that something that he's going to be able to shake off?
I don't believe in curses. But that's quite convenient this year. I just more think it's such a good thing for the team that he's the face of the league. It's just a very good thing for Bills football, But talk to me after about 6 weeks, once we've had some hit outs against some proper opposition, and I might believe. I tell you what, maybe Naeem Hines is believing in the Madden curse in some way. Jet ski accident the day before camp is unbelievable. Just
I hadn't heard what he actually done. So jet ski accident is.
So jet ski accident, but he was stationary, sitting on a jet ski. It's like, he was out doing some jet skiing, last day of holidays, enjoying it, and then he was sitting stationary on a jet ski, and someone collided with him.
Ooh.
And he's done. I think it's like he's really injured his knee and he's out for the season.
He's done for the year. I know that.
Yeah.
No.
But
Hey,
like when I
that's
first heard
I don't know
jet
what
ski
it is.
accident, that's like Buffalo, like snowmobile accident is more likely than a jet ski accident.
Yeah, you fell down a bloody well when it was snowed over. Like,
yeah, but it's interesting. Like it's like it's a terrible thing to happen before the season starts, and I think we've signed an extra running back overnight, or and we've got some questions at punt return now because he was so good at punt return last year. But I don't think we'd seen what he did in the mix. He came in halfway through the season from the Colts, and I don't think on offense was ever really that sort of catching back wasn't happening. But that was linked to a bunch of other things going on. I think Josh's elbow wasn't letting him throw short, throw underneath at all for a big part of the stretch. But it'll be interesting. I don't think, he's not the least consequential member of the team, but I think the team has got enough in that running back room to be okay. And I think Deontay Hardy is a great, punt and kick returner. So there's some, I don't think we're in trouble yet.
Yeah, I think he was more of the, because he scored those 2 touchdowns the game after the Damar Hamlin, and it was all about, this is what it was meant to be, and things like that. Yeah. So I think he was more of a spiritual kind of leader in the room. That's what you're losing more than the running back talents.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think part of the reason, not putting those touchdowns aside, and he absolutely, we would have lost that game to the Patriots had it not been for him. But there was another thing that I noticed on the night, like watching it, and even everything I saw afterwards. Because he came in late in the season, he obviously, while he was close with his new team, he wasn't as close to Damar. And his ability to support the rest of the team who were just feeling that raw, destabilizing emotion. And it was really hard for him. It's like an incredibly difficult thing just to watch happen to a teammate. But it felt like he was strong for a bunch of people. Like Stephon Diggs, there's some tragedy in his family history, and it was obviously very triggering for him. And you just saw how messed up he was on the night. He's a very emotional operator, Stephon Diggs, or he's connected to his emotions. I don't mean emotionally, unbalanced or difficult or anything. Just his emotions are part of the way that he works. And you could tell Nyheim Hines was supportive for him and supportive for a lot of members of the team. And so I think but at the same time, as far as I know, he's on long-term injured, non-football, NFR injury, non-football injury.
Non-football related injuries, yeah.
And so but I think they've kept him on the roster so that he can rehabilitate at the facility. So I think he'll still be part of what's going on this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've spoken about watching the games. Are you and we had a quick chat offline about the new platform. Is it Dazen? I don't even know how you say it. But are you a red zone kind of guy, or do you sit down and watch the games and get around it, especially with your son?
I'm pretty fortunate that the bulk of my the weekly normally happens in the first half of the year, and I get a bit more time. I've got other work that I'm doing, but I've got a bit more time particularly for the start of the season. And so I really try to do as many, the game in 40s, try to do as many of them as I can. And so I really do, I try to watch them. And then it's later in the season, it's a bit harder to keep up with everything. But I do try to watch every game if I can, because it's that anxiety thing of even if it's a bunch of NFC teams that the Bills aren't going to play in the season, you want to know what you're talking about. You want to know what you're watching, from wildcard onwards, to know what to worry about, even though you can't do anything about it.
Who to worry about, for sure. So if you ever, you've watched it for quite a few years, if you ever got the chance, what position would you be pulling on? What number would you be pulling on to play?
Initially I would have said quarterback, but that's largely because I like giving instructions to people. Like there's something about that dynamic that I like. I did cadets when I was a kid. And
Makes
I
sense.
was regimental sergeant major, so I just yelled at everyone where to march and all of that. But which I think makes me more of a Peyton Manning style quarterback, just standing there, just being a sheriff. But having seen, Baker Mayfield really struggle because of his height, I just don't think I've quite got the height to pull off quarterback. So I don't know, maybe a gadget player like McKenzie, like a gadget receiver, slot receiver is probably the most likely. I've got no other physical traits to bring to the table. I'm not going to win a line of scrimmage. I could maybe be evasive. The one thing I have is I can catch anything. Like the one thing I was good at sporting as a kid is I could catch any ball. So I reckon I can go long and I've got a chance. If I get a little bit of separation, I'll catch it.
There is a lot of Cole Beasley about you, Oregon.
Yeah, I've got too many teeth, but give me one game and I reckon I'll catch him. But I'm also, I think, a bit more vaccinated than he is.
Yes.
But,
can you spit bars like he does, though?
No. Well, even if I could, I don't think it's a good idea for me to do that.
That is more than fair.
So there's been some huge contracts been thrown around for like quarterbacks like Herbert, Hurts, Lamar. Like there's some big numbers going out there.
Burrow's happening. Like, that's
in the works.
That's really soon. I reckon that's going to be eye-watering when that one gets handed down.
Yeah. So, and then Josh Allen's only on $43 million a year, which is less than all of those. Does that make those?
That's why he eats every meal at the facility. He's barely got enough money to get by. But it's funny. I think the Bills. Well, I think the two best deals in the NFL are the Mahomes deal and the Allen deal. Like $500 million for 10 years for Mahomes felt crazy at the time.
Mm.
But year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of that deal is going to feel like a bargain.
Yeah.
And Allen is similar. It's funny. Like, I think it's a thing you have to get used to with the NFL is the way that your team can lose a player that you love because it comes down to money so often, and no one begrudges a player for wanting to get paid properly. Given the physical risks that they take just playing, they're loyal to their teams when they're playing because they put their lives on the line out there, but you don't begrudge anyone wanting money. But I get that feeling with Josh Allen that I think he likes the idea of keeping as good a team together as he can. I think he really feels the importance of trying to win a Super Bowl for Buffalo. And we'll see what happens. I mean, the fact is Buffalo are never going to let him go. Whatever it costs, they're going to give him the bag next time around. But I do feel like, it allows you to just have a deeper roster when your quarterback isn't taking up a quarter of your budget for the season. That said, it's voodoo accounting. Like the way that salary cap is managed is incredible. Someone wants to
real. The salary cap is not real.
It's not real. And what someone said about the Saints a few years ago, that they have Mafia accounting. And I was just like, yeah. It's like there's one guy there that's memorized all the numbers and nothing on paper is real. Like, it's just something else altogether. But but that's also, once you start to understand that as a fan, that's part of why it's such a great sport. That the salary cap isn't real, but it still affects,
It affects the account.
They couldn't keep Tremaine Edmonds this year. They just couldn't afford to do it, So all of a sudden we've got a problem at middle linebacker. But that's part of what makes a team good. And you look at the Chiefs, it's like, yeah, they're good because they've got Mahomes. Like, and whoever's got Mahomes is, well, they're going to make at least divisionals. Like, Mahomes alone is divisionals, right? But I think what's really impressive about the Chiefs is that they can let a Tyreek Hill go and then figure out how to make it work with a Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
And, that's part of the challenge. And it comes down to front office and also coaching. It's like good coaches want to coach. Good coaches want to take someone that maybe is flying under the radar and is a bit cheaper and coach them to being, to reaching their ceiling,
And that's something Andy Reid definitely does. Like, he allows the players to draw up their own plays sometimes, like
Yeah.
throughout the season, and like get them to work on their own plays. Because if they're going to run their own play, they're going to run it right. It's being ingrained in that team mentality.
It's funny. Like, whilst this is obviously my favourite NFL podcast, obviously. The Athletic just had a series called The Play Callers, and it's kind of about the Shanahan tree of coaching. And it's an amazing documentary, and it's sort of similar in style to the Andrew Luck one that the Athletic did last year, which was a great story of his tragic career. But in that, there are so many stories about, like, Shanahan, for example, letting a player bring it, like Shanahan, who is a megalomaniacal control freak of the scheme, but allowing a new player like RG3 to come in and go, let's run a player training that you like. We're going to put it in on Saturday because I know you're going to commit to it working. But that you need to have that creative relationship. It can't just be dictatorial. It just won't work, because all of a sudden you're trying to get players to do things they're physically not able to do or mentally not able to do. It's as we've said, it's the most complicated sport there is. But making it work, it comes down to some pretty simple principles as well.
Just while we're still on the quarterbacks, if you could give me, going into this season, give us your top 5 quarterbacks.
Oof.
Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow. This is controversial, but I watched a lot of Clemson football over the years, and I reckon Trevor Lawrence. Now, I know there's some Herbert fans out there getting angry about that, just with me saying it. But it's funny. I wonder if Herbert, for as good as he is, and he's a freak show, but if he's been harmed a little bit by the Chargers experience, which I think is it's a bruising experience. The Chargers find incredible ways to lose. And I think he's suffered through some bad offensive coaching. I think Trevor Lawrence had this gift that his first season doesn't count because Urban Meyer took all the heat, was the worst possible coach ever. And you could say, wow, that could ruin another quarterback. But Trevor Lawrence could actually just go out and go for whatever play he wanted, do whatever read he wanted, and no one held it against him. And then season 2, he really locked in, and their win over the Chargers, I thought, was incredible to come back from as far as they did. And I just think he's got a great temperament, and he's unshakable. So he sneaks into my top 5. There'll be people that think that is ridiculous, but by the end of this season, I feel like I'm going to be right on that one.
Vindicated.
I agree with you, but there definitely will be people out there, because didn't Herbert just in his first 3 seasons throw for the most amount of yards ever of all time?
Yep, entirely possible.
Yeah.
100%.
Am I scared of the Chargers? No, I'm not.
No, absolutely not.
And they can't, it's they've got some, to have an Austin Eckler and not keep him happy is just fucking bananas to me too. He kept them in contention last year, almost, I would say, as much or more than Herbert did. Their offense was an Eckler-driven offense. And I think, I'm not convinced that they've fully got it together as an offense.
That is a perfect segue for the other position that is under a bit of struth. Would you go in, take a $5 or $6 million bag and be a running back? Because no one seems to want to pay running backs at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I'd take a $5 million bag to, Actually, do you know what? I just realised the correct answer to your question before. I'm a kicker. That's all I am. I'm a kicker. No, sorry, it's just so obvious. Who am I fooling? I'm a kicker. Also, you're a protected species when you're a kicker. You're like a precious gazelle. If anyone touches the kicker, it's a catastrophe. But
I tried to kick the other day. It is extremely hard when they're throwing the ball at you that hard. But anyway,
yeah. So running back, I think it's really unfair. It's funny. There's an actors and writers strike in Hollywood at the moment, and I think there should be a running back strike in the
There's every
NFL,
chance it happens.
Because I just think that, in so many ways, it's just undervalued as a position, and I think it's conspicuous that teams will draft a really great running back out of college and just break them. 4 years. They don't even give them a respect of a first round pick when they are good enough to be in the first round.
Yeah.
That position is so undervalued, and then they end up broken after 4 or 5 years, and lucky to get a decent second contract. And it doesn't, for the importance of a running back to a team, I think something has to change, and it's obviously the fault of the CBA, like the way they negotiated the CBA just didn't take care of running backs in any way whatsoever, and running backs are so underpaid that a franchise tag on Saquon Barkley is slightly ludicrous. It's underpaying him.
Yeah, he just signed a deal, actually, $11 million for 1 year, though. He's only got the 1 year. And
yeah, I don't think there was no way they were going to keep him longer without paying him properly.
Mm.
And I think they're in for a good year from Saquon Barkley, but it'll be very interesting to see where he goes at the end of the year. It's actually really interesting. You'll have Derrick Henry on the market at the end of the year, Saquon Barkley, some veterans there that if you felt like you were close, they would be some great players to add to your roster that I think they've still got legs. I mean, Saquon Barkley last year was terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, and if you don't think Derrick Henry's still got a few good years under his belt, you're kidding yourself.
No, he's still got it, and he trains so hard.
Oh, yeah.
He's carrying some injuries. Like, he's had some injuries. His feet have been a problem, and but his recovery and the way that he trains to recover is insane.
Mm.
And he's one of those players that, if you're trying to tackle him, you're making a business decision about, do you want to go to hospital today? And it's like
life decision, really, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah. Do you have a will? Are you wanting to take care of before you tackle? And he's definitely got, he's got good years ahead of him.
Yeah, I think
he might not be as fast as he was 4 years ago, but he's also, the way he reads play and hits gaps and is incredible.
It shouldn't be all Derrick Henry this year now, especially with the likes of D-Hop and stuff going there. I think he could have a better year, especially than last year, because he's going to have that help on the outside. And they're not just going to be able to put 6 or 7 in the box and say, bring it on. They're going to have to wide him out a little bit, and he's going to have more gaps to hit.
Yeah, I think that's really true. He becomes, defenses have to do 2 or 3 things instead of 1 now. It'll be interesting to see if they can get quarterback working properly. Though D-Hop's great.
Yeah.
I also think you've got to keep D-Hop healthy.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to get it to him. And I think they've got some big questions still, about whether or not they can do that. I thought Malik Willis is an interesting case of great traits, but maybe missing the coaching, maybe missing the opportunity to evolve. And I'm fascinated to see what happens at Green Bay. That feels like...
We'll be Sherry, right? What do you mean?
Yeah, sure.
Don't you talk about
But Jordan Love is... It's funny. I find his story to be just a fascinating story. To be that good, to be drafted that high, and come into what is definitely the weirdest... It's like the weirdest professional environment in the NFL since the last time Green Bay drafted a quarterback.
In the last 18 years.
Yeah, it's like psychological, just an absolute mindfuck. I'll be so curious to see what he's got. How good can you be 3 or 4 years on the practice squad? How ready can you be to take over? And if you missed too much development, it'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, with very little actual game time. We only play half a game against Philly last season, and that's pretty much all anyone's seen of him actually playing a game that matters.
And he's had flashes, in that time that he's had flashes, but he's also had those mental errors that you should be making in your first year, in your Trevor Lawrence year. And, a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, I'm already booking my tickets to Vegas, so I'm not as worried about you guys. But
so does that mean you agree with me that Rodgers is washed and Green Bay are better off without him?
Oh, Jesus. Don't throw me under the bus.
You're talking to someone who cried when he got traded. He literally cried.
Really?
It was a big day in my household. I've only ever known one quarterback, so
if only he'd shown the same commitment to the Packers that you do.
Yeah. I don't think he's washed. Well, that's the question. But I think it was getting too toxic. We had to break the cycle somewhere.
Yeah.
We either had to, really love him up and make him happy, but we weren't willing to do that, or the office wasn't willing to do that. So we had to break it off somewhere. So I'm looking forward to see what Jordan Love can do. Like you said, he's anyone who sits behind anyone like that. Like if you sat behind Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, and just see the way they work, like a Peyton Manning or something like that, sit behind them and learn off them for 3 or 4 years. I still think you've got that head start. Yes, he's going to make a few bonehead plays. Like we have to expect that, but I think we're going to be better off for it.
But that's a question too, and you would know this, and I don't. But I never got the feeling that Aaron Rodgers was a mentor who was supportive of having a young guy in the room that he wanted to develop. I think he just deeply resented the presence of, I feel like Jordan Love's been through a really isolating experience. And he might have been watching Aaron Rodgers up close, but he could have just watched tape and got maybe he's listened in the quarterback room, but I just don't really get the sense that he will have gotten as much out of Aaron Rodgers as was possible,
Well, all Aaron Rodgers wanted was some more offensive weapons to have at his disposal, and they drafted a quarterback to sit behind him. So he's never going to be
a weapon or any dog about.
Yeah, that's right. It's probably the most. It's the most.
It's the offensive
weaponized weapon.
We're not going to know until he gets out in the field, though, are we? Like, we're never going to know how he was. Like, there's every chance that he was the mentor and, did teach him. But I reckon he's got a persona of being a bit of an asshole, which, that's the way he is. But I don't think we're ever going to know until, like, he's doing the same thing now with the blonde-headed guy who sleeps with everyone's. Can't remember his name. Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Yeah, he's got the same problem there. Like, is he going to mentor him, and he's going to be the future for the Jets, or is he just there for one thing and one thing only? Like,
I'm willing to bet that Zach Wilson is not the future for the Jets. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to take that bet because I'm probably on your side.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't. You end up as an NFL fan, you become very familiar with like sports radio folks in America who have to drop too many takes a day to listen to. But I think it was Cowherd or Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless.
The two guys that drop the most things of all.
The most hot takes. Just the most takes. Not hot, but lots of takes.
Yeah, they're the Kane calls.
They never give, always take. But one thing that resonated with me was questioning his leadership, like the way that he leads. And sometimes being really good on the field isn't enough to be a leader. And I think that's what's going to be interesting in New York. Has he evolved that muscle now that he's out of the toxic environment of Green Bay? Does he have that? Can he pick up that team on his back and take them? Or is he up on a mountain saying, you better get up here quickly, I'm throwing the ball? I'm just not sure how patient he is. But,
I don't know when this turned into a Green Bay podcast,
but it's a Rodgers podcast because I've got to deal with him for 2 matches in the AFC East.
Yeah,
no matter what. But I think that's not what worries me about the AFC East this season.
But just on that, on the Jets, do you think it is going to be a tough start?
I don't think we're going to know. I've got a sneaking suspicion that the Bills are going to be more brutal than people think. I think they're now underrated. I think last year, they played a really good last game of the season. They went in as favourites, but I just think they're tougher. I think last year was so hard for them as a team with so much bad shit happening. DeMar Hamlin dying on the field was the last note in the song. Like relocating a game to Detroit because you snowed in and there was no guarantee they could, neighbours were getting them out of the snow to get to the airport. And then just the injuries, Von Miller, who was that final piece, and to lose him, all of it, it changed the defense. but I think people have sort of moved on from them a bit too quickly, and I think they're going to be hungry. So I like that's what I suspect will happen. I prefer the Jets without Breece Hall, who is still coming back from that ACL. He was terrifying to me, but Sauce is an incredible cornerback. He's trouble. I think they're so strong defensively. Like, they're really strong defensively. It's all going to come down to whether or not Rodgers can do it. I suspect he's going to, that O-line's going to have to do some work, because they're going to really have to protect him and buy him time, because I think we'll go after him pretty hard in that first game.
You're in a pretty tough division, especially like you say you're not worried about the Jets. I feel like if Tua's healthy, they're probably going to be your biggest problem.
I think they're stronger than the Jets defensively. Like, they're harder to overcome. They were problematic for us last year. We lost a game to them. I mean, that we should have won. That was a tough one to watch. Getting up at 3 a.m. and watching that was no good.
That was it McDermott or whatever was punching was that game?
Yeah, it was Ken Dorsey was smashing
smashing the table. Yeah. Yes. What a great vibe.
It's a great clip, great early, but also it was just like we had the ball so much. We had so many plays, but we just couldn't get there. But then later in the season, we won close games against them, and I do think we were on top of them. But their receiver core is terrifying. Their defense is strong, and we haven't been good enough at stopping the run, and most it tore us apart twice. And so I think they're a problematic matchup for us. I think the way we match up with them is tough. I've got one of my best mates, Adam Rosenbach's, who's a big Dolphins fan. And he's not sold on Tua. Like, he's not enthusiastic about Tua. And I think his health is a question, obviously, with the concussions and everything. I think if you're spending your off-season doing judo so you can fall better, I don't think is a good storyline. No. So I'm not convinced that he will hold it together and keep them threatening for the season. I think the best indicator for what this season's going to be like for Tua is what's come before it. And he's quick and he's accurate. I still don't think he creates enough. He's not mobile enough, and he's fragile. So I think that might give us the edge.
And a massive plus for you, he hates playing in the cold.
Hates playing in the cold.
Hates it.
Does he have small hands? Is that one of his things too? Like, he can't hold it?
Nah. Oh, was it? No, he was. In the draft, it was that he was injured. He was coming in after he had a broken leg or a broken hip in a car accident or something, and so there was. Yeah. Who had the tiny hands? Who was that?
There's a few that are rocking around. Kenny Pickett's got the small hands.
Pickett, that was the one. Kenny Pickett's hands got talked about for so long. But when he holds it,
he's a double glover. It's a bit weird, but yeah,
it's like the equivalent of sitting on phone books at the hairdressers when you're a kid.
Or when you're an adult, either way.
He's speaking to someone who's 5'3" with shoes on.
Yeah. I reckon it makes me look a bit bigger, but
what were your thoughts on the draft picks that you got? Like, to me, I reckon you got some absolute weapons, especially.
I reckon the value that we got was great. I think Dalton Kincaid, I think he was the get of the whole first round. I don't know if you're across his stats, but he dropped 3 catches in his entire college career, and they targeted him a lot. You watch games and he gets targeted 15, 20 times a game, and he dropped 3 catches the whole time. And, he's not the best run blocker, but he knows how to do it. And I think that big slot tight end, that real kind of a big receiver as much as a tight end. That's kind of the future for the next 5 years of the NFL. Like, everyone wants a Kelsey. They want a Kittle. What Gronk was, like a genuine catching threat.
Yep.
And we had so much problem in the slot last year. Our short game disappeared once Allen hurt his elbow. And I do think he's going to be a really important piece of that. And then on top of that, Osiris Torrance on the O-line is he's new. I don't know if he'll start. They might protect him a little bit, but he is great at stopping the run, and that's a big problem our line had. Hang on, no, I'm getting confused now. No, not sorry. Great, like creating run.
Making holes.
That's it. That's what I meant. And I think we didn't have that as much. We had one run scheme at the start of the season. We changed 3 weeks in, and then we were kind of just guessing the rest of the year. I'm really excited about last year's draft picks this year. I actually think James Cook has got a really big year ahead of him. By the end of last season, he was doing great work, and he is fast and he moves. He cuts really well. And I think Harris is a good balance to that. I think we've got someone who can punch through. We've got someone who can make space out wide. And I think Khair Elam, I think he'll win the corner spot, and I think he'll be a really good player. He made some big plays last year. He learned some, he got targeted in the Pittsburgh game really badly because they picked him as new, and he had a tough day, but I think he learned from it. I think he's got a really good head on his shoulders. I'll be interesting to see. I think Dorian Williams as a linebacker is great. He loves to tackle. I think that's a big problem we've had. We didn't make enough tackles stick last year, and I think he's really good for that. But once again, I just think we've got depth across the board that we didn't have last year. With some of the contests for certain positions on the O-line, D-line, corner, who ends up being the third and fourth safety, rather than being who's good enough to actually do the job, we're choosing between starters about, and our backups are going to be starter quality people.
Yeah.
I just think there's a depth there that we haven't had. Wow, that sounded like I really knew what I was talking about. That was amazing.
You've got me just sitting here, just lapping it up. It's great. We've got a couple more questions to throw at you, but just before we wrap it all up, mate, I just want to thank you for your time and coming on and having a chat, and obviously listening to us every week. It's been it's obviously good for your knowledge, and as a balding man sitting here listening and watching your hairline's making me very angry. It's
I think I've got I suspect, and this is going to be, I'm not saying this to be hurtful, I think people have a receding hairline. I think I've got a proceeding hairline. It starts to grow in here, and I have to rip out. It's coming forward. I think I've got some werewolf tendencies or something. But yeah,
not a bad thing to have.
I'm happy to lend some hair at some time.
The beard doesn't really show how much I'm wearing a beanie for a reason. It's going backwards, but that's all right. My last one for you, mate, is I want you to put your balls on the line early, and how do you? What's your predictions for the year for the Bills?
I think they'll make the AFC title game, and I think at that point, you don't. I think by the time you're at conference championships, unless someone is an absolute steamroller, it really comes down to the game plan on the day and who plays well and where you're at. But I actually think, I think that's where they're going to end up. But it's a long way to get there. But I think mentally they're going to be right in a way that I don't think they were last year. They were just completely broken by the Bengals game last year.
Well, realistically, if you can have 0 players die on the field, it's a successful season.
It's an improvement, definitely. Yeah,
you're on the upward trend. Yeah.
That's our. The Bills need one of those signs going this many days since a fatality. But yeah, I just think but there's also some big questions. It's whether or not Ken Dorsey can actually coach that offense to where they need to be. But the weapons are there now. I think they've replaced some players with more consistent, stronger players, and they've got a lot of people on 1 year, $1.7 million contracts that are playing for their next contract. Gabe Davis, this is a contract year for him. Now, a lot of people he underperformed a bit, but he was injured, had a high ankle sprain for a lot of weeks last year and couldn't really do what he does. I think he's got some technique issues with his catching. He drops more than he should, but he's out to get a contract this year. He'll play really well. I think there's promise. And Von Miller is the most motivated man on the planet from what I've seen. I think he's on the pup list now, but he could still make it back for week 1. But if we get him even for most of the season and the playoffs, that's going to really pull the defense together, I reckon. And I think also, like, last year, we never had a fit Jordan Poyer. Like, he wasn't healthy 1 week. He had a punctured lung and he couldn't fly, so he drove in a van to go and play the game. We didn't have Micah Hyde after week 1 or week 2. No, week 2 against the Titans. And they're like one of the best safety duos in the game, and we just didn't have them. And Tre'Davious White was coming back from a ACL, and he came back on Thanksgiving and still wasn't 100% ready. So I think there's some big pieces there that are going to go well. And it depends on, what growth the Bengals have in them and what the Chiefs can do with whatever receivers they've got. I think the most terrifying thing about Patrick Mahomes to me is his coachability, and he wants to learn and adapt and change. He's not stuck in his way. And I think if Josh Allen has a bit more of that, I think it'll be pretty competitive.
Yeah.
So let's say you do make it all the way to the big dance. The Bills go to the Super Bowl. Are you going to make the trip to Vegas?
It's problematic because I definitely have a studio record for the weekly on a Tuesday when the Super Bowl is going to be played. I don't know if I'm going to quit my job to do it, but if I can find a way to film my show in Vegas, then I think I would definitely. It's actually going to be genuinely heartbreaking if I can't, if I can't go. But I think I might have to miss out this time, just because you got to pay the bills.
Which
You're
Bills?
gonna pay the bills, so you watch the
right.
Bills.
Yeah.
Nah, beautiful. All right, mate. Well, I wasn't quite sure what to expect coming here, but this was an absolute elite chat, and just seeing your brain tick
not at
over,
all.
I think it was absolutely awesome. So,
Too kind. All I'll say is this, like, more than happy to do it because we live in a wasteland of NFL conversation. Like, Australian NFL fans, who do we talk to? That's why you guys found each other. That's why I'm here. So we have no one to talk to. It's funny. I just went away on holiday and went to Hawaii, and I wore a Bills cap every single day because there were Americans there, and I knew someone would mention the Bills, and I could have a 5-minute conversation about football with someone that knew what they were talking about. It's like it is tough. NFL, if it's your favourite sport, it's tough as an Aussie. So it's nice to be in this little support group with you guys.
It's absolutely true, because we've had fans reach out to us this week, who's hit us up on Twitter, being like, "Are you going to start a Discord for this upcoming season?" Because they just want NFL fans just want to talk to one another.
Yeah, and also it's hard because it's like the games are on at terrible times to socialise. Like 3 a.m. on a Monday morning for that 1 p.m. start on the East Coast, it's just impossible. It's so hard to get that, to commune with others. Monday night football's all right. It's like Tuesday during the day. Luckily, a few people I work with are into NFL. That's when, we got that on in the background on the TV. But it's a lonely road being an Aussie NFL fan. So thank you for including me.
absolutely.
I'm also want to say thank you that we're doing this before we do our AFC East preview episode, because I've just been taking notes the whole time.
Right.
Have we got AFC East this week?
No, we don't. We've got the NFC
Good.
West, I think.
I know what's going on. That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think NFC East could go in a number of directions. Like I think it's as interesting as it's been for a while.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are just happy that the Patriots are clearly the worst team in the division.
Yeah.
It does Mac Jones have another All-Pro season in him? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I think he's got to have some kind of season, otherwise he might be on the way out.
At the door.
Any kind of season, really.
But I mean, how bad for Mac Jones? It's your second year and you've got Matt Patricia as your... Like, you've got a defensive coordinator as your OC.
Yeah,
That's the most Bill Belichick decision ever.
Yeah.
Do you know what the offense needs? More defense.
Why is the offense on the field? We're going to win this with that. Let's get him off. Where's that Brady bloke? Bring him back.
Yeah.
He'll come out of retirement. But for anyone who has been living under a rock, can you let us know where we can find you, mate?
On Twitter, it's at Charlie Pick. I'm on ABC iView when my show's on. And if not, actually, early Friday mornings on ABC Radio Melbourne. I do breakfast now.
Early's early.
It's 5:30 to 8. So
That'll
it's
lead
one day a
straight
week.
into the Friday morning game. It's too perfect.
Yeah, it works out all right. Works out all right.
Smart. Nah, nice, mate. Much appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have to get you on live from Buffalo, I reckon.
I will absolutely phone in. Absolutely do that.
Delicious.
There's some, it'll be emotional. I might be an unstable individual. I might be
the Raiders, mate. If you don't trounce him, then Cardi's a Raiders man. He's not here. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I'm glad. I'm very glad. It's, it's not Miami or the Chiefs or the Bengals first game. For my first game, I think I'll be a tiny bit more relaxed and enjoy it.
Yeah.
It definitely should be a winnable game for you. If you're not beating the Raiders, you definitely ain't going to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Exactly right. That year's gone to shit that you were just talking about. Actually, we'll gauge whether we get you on as the result of the game, maybe.
I might just never come home if we lose.
Nah, that's right. Jump through a few too many tables and see what happens. Awesome, mate. Much appreciated, and we'll speak to you soon.
Hey, no worries, guys. Thanks a lot. Cheers.